This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months, and lots of bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time, especially when you have to prove almost nothing to exercise our greatest privilege, the right to vote.
Welcome back. Donald Trump gave a speech yesterday which he called the most important speech he ever gives. But if you watch the mainstream media, here's what you'll see. Headlines reading, Donald Trump releases video statement repeating baseless vote fraud claims. So that's where I come in. I'm not going to lie to you. And since they're lying to you, I decided to show you the speech itself. Not the whole 46 minutes, but the parts that I thought were most interesting. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Donald J., the Donald, President Trump, the Orange Man, starts off his speech with the usual boring stuff that we all know about. There's dead people on the register rolls, massive mailing voters were sent out to people that no longer live in the state, blah, 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 blah. Boring, fraud, but let's get into the juicy stuff, huh? Like times where people showed up to vote and they were told, sorry, you already voted. Check it out.
And in a lot of cases, they filled out a provisional ballot, which was almost never used, but in virtually every case was a vote for Trump. In other words, they went in to vote and they were told that they voted. And they didn't vote. And they left and they felt horror. And they lost respect for our system. And this happened tens of thousands of times all over the country. That's how desperate the Democrats were. They would fill out ballots of people not even knowing if these people were going to show up. And when they did show up, they said, sorry, you've already voted.
When it comes to Dominion voting systems, we haven't seen the smoking gun. Sidney Powell has talked about it, Giuliani has talked about it, Trump is talking about it. We haven't seen the code that would make the glitches, but we have seen some things. We have seen some glitches. For example, the one that turned 6,000 votes from Trump to Biden. And according to Trump, they found that same glitch in numerous places. The question is, what if they found it in hundreds or thousands?
We have a company that's very suspect. Its name is Dominion. With the turn of a dial or the change of a chip, you can press a button for Trump and the vote goes to Biden. What kind of a system is this? We have to go to paper. Maybe it takes longer, but the only secure system is paper. Not these systems that nobody understands, including, in many cases, the people that run them. Although, unfortunately, I think they understand them far too well. In one Michigan county, as an example, that used Dominion systems, they found that nearly 6,000 votes had been wrongly switched from Trump to Biden. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what we caught. How many didn't we catch? Are there hundreds of other examples throughout the country? Are there thousands? We just got lucky, and they called it a glitch. But we found numerous glitches that evening.
And how is this not sketchy? Did you know that today, December 2nd, 11:20 p.m., basically a month after the election, there's still votes being tabulated. There's elections that we don't know the results to. Congress elections, House of Representatives. This is nuts. Is this normal to anyone? Has this ever happened before? And if not, then you need to ask yourself.
Carefully investigated, but not only for the future. Right now, we're worried about the present and what went on with an election that we won without question. Under my lead, the Republicans won almost every state house in the United States, which they weren't expected to do. We went up to 16 seats in the House. The numbers are still being tabulated, because there are 9 seats that nobody really knows. They don't know. They're still, 2 weeks later, still under consideration because it's a mess. Because our country cannot live with this kind of an election. We could say, let's go on to the next one. But no, we have to look also at our past. We can't let this happen. Maybe you'll have a revote, but I don't think that's appropriate. When those votes are corrupt, when they're irregular, when they get caught, they're terminated. And I very easily win. In all states, I very easily win these swing states. Just like I won them at 10 o'clock in the evening of the election. So we're not looking to show you 25 faulty or fraudulent votes, which don't mean anything because it doesn't overturn the state, or 50 or 100. We're showing you hundreds of thousands, far more than we need, far more than the margin, far more than the law requires. We can show many times what is necessary to win the state. The media knows this, but they don't want to report it. In fact, they outright refuse to even cover it because they know the result if they do. Even what I'm saying now will be demeaned and disparaged, but that's okay. I just keep on going forward because I'm representing 74 million people, and in fact, I'm also representing all of the people that didn't vote for me.
Don't worry, my orange lad. I'm never gonna disparage you. Because that's not what I do. Because I'm not mainstream media. Hashtag not CNN. Hashtag not Fox News. Hashtag definitely not MSNBC. Because that's a real bad shit. But what do you guys think would happen if Trump ends up actually winning this election? What would happen to the media, I mean? Are they going to collapse? Who would take them seriously anymore? Comment your opinions down below. I think CNN would just go bankrupt. I don't know. And now we get to a part that I think is one of the most important of all. He talks about Durham and the Durham Report. For those of you who don't know, the Durham Report, Durham is a person investigating Obamagate. Obamagate. Obamagate is a nice term for what Obama did, getting the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign before he got into office. That's how they got Carter Page. That's how they got the illegal FISA warrant for Michael Flynn, who, got pardoned last week. But the reason why this is so important is that Trump is going to call out Durham for not acting before the election, for seeing which way the wind was blowing. If Trump wins the election, I'll go forward in the next 4 years. If Trump loses the election, I just won't investigate anything and no one will be mad at me because I didn't do it before the election. That's what Trump's talking about when he mentions John Durham right now. Keep your eyes open and your brain open.
What can I say? We caught Comey cold. We caught McCabe cold. We caught them all. We're still waiting for a report from a man named Durham, who I have never spoken to and I have never met. They can go after me before the election as much as they want. But unfortunately, Mr. Durham didn't want to go after these people or have anything to do with going after them before the election. So who knows if he is ever going to even do a report. But if you look at the lies and the leaks and the illegal acts and behavior done by so many people in their desire to hurt the President of the United States, something should happen. The hardest thing I have to do is explain why nothing is happening with all of these people that got caught spying on my campaign. It's never happened before, and it should never happen again to a president of the United States.
And you know what? I bet he does get a lot of questions every day from his supporters. Hey, why is nothing happening with the Durham Report? Why is nobody being arrested for Obamagate? And I bet it's hard for him to say, I don't know. Because I ask myself that very frequently. Why is nothing happening? We have FBI agents pleading guilty to falsifying documents. You have Comey saying, I didn't know what was going on under me. Watch the hearings yourself. It's embarrassing. And now he gets a trial with Columbia law. I don't get it. I don't get these people. But you know what? Another thing that really grinds my gears is voter ID. When I was in college, when I was a Democrat, I thought, like CNN told me, that voter ID laws were racist. Minorities don't have access to the DMV. They can't get to the DMV. Well, then I realized that's racist. Thinking that minorities don't know what the DMV is racist. Thinking that minorities can't get to the DMV is racist. Minorities are just the same as you. Just different color. Different something minor. It doesn't matter. Voter IDs are not racist and should be required. Trump agrees with me because he's a smart man.
States allowed anyone to get an absentee ballot and cast their vote without showing any ID. The voting took place entirely on the honor system. No identification of any kind was required. Most Americans would also be shocked to learn that no state in the country verifies United States citizenship as a condition for voting in federal elections. This is a national disgrace. No other advanced country conducts elections this way. Many European countries have instituted major restrictions on mail-in voting specifically because they recognize the nearly unlimited potential for fraud. Out of 42 European nations, all but 2 prohibit absentee ballots entirely for people who reside inside the country, or else they require those who need absentee ballots to show a very, very powerful ID. Throughout the Democrat effort to dramatically expand mail-in voting, the Democrat Party leaders were also feverishly working to block measures designed to protect against fraud, such as signature verification, residency verification, or voter ID, and citizenship confirmation was almost unthought of that we should ask for it. Can you believe this?
I can't believe it, but I wonder why these people are doing this. It's almost as if they're using the pandemic to take power. Wait a second. Trump's getting to it right now.
These are not the actions of people who want fair elections. These are the actions of people who want to steal elections, who are willing to create fraud. The only conceivable reason why you would block common sense measures to verify legal eligibility for voting is you are trying to encourage, enable, solicit, or carry out fraud. It is important for Americans to understand that these destructive changes to our election laws were not a necessary response to the pandemic.
No, of course it was a necessary response to the pandemic. We're all getting crowded into grocery stores, aren't we? We're all allowed to protest, aren't we? Because, the virus doesn't affect the woke people. We can go to Walmart, we can go to Publix, but no, small businesses have to be closed. Voting, can't do it in person. Doesn't make sense. But let's keep going.
The pandemic simply gave the Democrats an excuse to do what they have been trying to do for many, many years. In fact, the very first bill that House Democrats introduced when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker was an attempt to mandate universal mail-in voting and eliminate measures such as voter ID, which is so necessary. Dramatically eroding the integrity of our elections was the Democrats' #1 priority for a simple reason. They wanted to steal the 2020 presidential election.
One of the things you could do to make it seem like you're trying to steal an election is, for example, not be transparent at all. Not let poll watchers from the other side come in. Maybe board up some windows. All of that happened, and more. I know it sounds like it's fake news, but all of that happened. Here's Donald giving you his version.
Pennsylvania, large amounts of mail-in and absentee ballots were processed illegally and in secret in Philadelphia and Allegheny counties without our observers present. They were not allowed to be present. In fact, they weren't even allowed in the same room. They were thrown out of the building, and they looked from outside in, but they had no way of even seeing because there were no windows, and the windows that were there were boarded up. Democrats even went to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to block observers from receiving access. There is only one possible reason that the corrupt Democrat political machine would oppose transparency during the vote counting. It's because they know they are hiding illegal activity. It's very simple.
In election law, there's a term of art, a legal term, that basically says that all ballots must be treated equally. That means they must have the same rules and must be handled the same. What happened in this election, though, which is very important, is that some Republican counties and some Democratic counties in the same states, which have the same laws, were not treating the ballots equally. For example, in a Democratic county, if your mail-in ballot had an error, they will call you and have you cure that error, fix the error so they can count your vote for Biden. In Republican counties, they didn't do that. That means that all of those counties treated their ballots unequally. And that is actually a very important legal issue.
Voters across Pennsylvania were treated differently based on whether they were Republicans or Democrats. Voters who submitted flawed ballots in some Democrat precincts were notified and asked to fix their ballots, while Republican precincts, and in particular Republican voters, were not so notified, which plainly violates the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. If you were a Democrat, we're going to fix up your ballot, make sure it's perfect. If you are a Republican, don't even talk about it.
If your job was to certify an election, and you saw that the mail-in ballots that came in were more than the mail-in ballots that went out, and you saw that the amount of registered voters in the county is more than the actual residents in the county, would you be concerned? Would you not want to certify the results? Would you want to wait, investigate? Well, the Republican canvassers in Detroit thought so, and for that, they got a lot of hate threats.
In Detroit, everybody saw the tremendous conflict and the horrible way that the two Republican canvassers were treated, so horribly, because they wouldn't vote when they saw that 71% of the precincts didn't balance. And also, there were more votes than there were voters. Think of that. You had more votes than you had voters. That's an easy one to figure. And it's by the thousands. In Arizona, in-person voters whose ballots produced error messages from tabulation machines were told to press a button that resulted in their votes not being counted. Also in Arizona, the Attorney General announced that mail-in ballots had been stolen from mailboxes and hidden under a rock. In Clark County, Nevada, where most of the state's voters reside, the standards for matching a signature using the signature verification machine were intentionally lowered to allow large numbers of ballots to be counted that otherwise would never have passed muster.
Why would anyone do that? I can't come up with a logical solution. I mean, I can come up with nefarious ones, but an innocent one. If you can, please comment down below. And now, pay close attention, because this is, I think, the most important evidence he's going to show us so far. Close attention.
One of the most significant indications of widespread fraud is the extraordinarily low rejection rates for mail-in ballots in many key states. These are the states that I had to win. In swing state after swing state, the number of ballots rejected has been dramatically lower than what would have been expected based on prior experience. That means years and years of voting. In Georgia, just 0.2%, that's substantially less than 1%, of mail-in ballots have been rejected. In other words, almost none have been rejected. They took everything. Nothing was rejected, practically, compared to 6.4% in 2016. And there are those that think that 6.4 was a low number. So think of it. Almost none were rejected. And the previous election, 6.4% were rejected. We have seen similar declines in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Michigan. Ballots weren't rejected, especially if they happen to be in Democrat areas. These irregularities are inexplicable unless there is a deliberate effort to accept ineligible ballots or fraudulent ballots.
The issue here is that recounts wouldn't solve the problem, because you could look at the ballot and say, oh, it says Biden, that's good. When in reality, what you have to do is look at the envelope, look at the signature. If you're not doing that, the recount won't do nothing. So what should we do? Listen to Trump.
Many of them, tens of thousands, have fraudulent signatures. A full forensic audit is required to ensure that only legal ballots from lawfully registered voters that were properly cast are included in the final count. Every reasonable American should be able to agree, based on what we have already documented, that we need a systematic analysis of the mail-in ballots to review the envelopes. It's about the signature. And if they're on the envelopes, we can only review the envelopes, and that will tell us everything.
And if you're wondering how really important it is to audit these 6%, that 7% or 2% that are off, listen to this.
Have congratulated me on all we've done. The biggest tax cuts in history, regulation cuts, the biggest in history. We rebuilt our military. We took care of our vets like never before. Space Force, and so much more.
Actually, you're forgetting two very important things that your president brought to the United States and the world. First, the Middle East peace deals. Second, my YouTube channel. Like, subscribe.
But then they went on to say, as big and as important as these events were, the single greatest achievement in your presidency will be exactly what you're doing right now. Voter integrity for our nation. It's more important than any of the things that we discussed. If we don't root out the fraud, the tremendous and horrible fraud that's taken place in our 2020 election, we don't have a country anymore. So with the resolve and support of the American people, we will restore honesty and integrity to our elections, and we will restore trust in our system of government. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Like, subscribe, see you next time.